So Coffs Harbour is a regional city. Even though we are small from a population size, we can work from Coffs Harbour because of the lifestyle destination. And similar to Cloudstaff, we are very interested in outsourcing and utilizing the remote talents. And this is, I think, very exciting to have Lloyd joining us and explain what the essence of his success is. And through several ventures, we're very keen to hear what are the key elements. And I'm very thankful to have Leah Callon-Butler helping us to organize this. So thank you, Leah. Hi. And she's based in the Philippines, just like Lloyd. I'd like to start this session with a video from the Coffs Coast, from our own Uncle Mark Flanders. And he will give you an introduction to the beautiful Coffs Coast.
G'day, my name's Uncle Mark Flanders, and I'd like to welcome you to the Gumbaynggirr Aboriginal country, my country. We are saltwater, freshwater people. We are land and sea people. We're custodians of our lands and waters, and we are caretakers of our lands and waters. This bush you're looking at, this is our calendar. This told us when the foods were available, when to move camp. The seasonal patterns determined what we were doing. At winter time, we travelled from the mountains down into the ocean because there's lots more food available. In the summertime, before the summer, we'd travel back up into the mountains here again. Come up here and visit this beautiful rainforest up here on the escarpment that we have. The foods are still here, our medicines are still here, our culture is still strong in this area. Come on up and visit it, you'll enjoy it.
And so I'd like to also introduce Leah.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So as you mentioned, I'm actually from Coffs Harbour. I went to Coffs Harbour Senior College, and I just want to thank you, Tony, so much for inviting me onto Startup Grind, because I think it's absolutely incredible what you're doing to promote regional innovation in Australia. Obviously, Sydney, Melbourne gets so much attention, but there's actually an incredible startup community growing in Coffs, and you're doing so much to boost that. I think it's awesome. Yeah, so as I said, I'm from Coffs. Shout out to Mitch Forrest. There's quite a few familiar names in that list there. So just to introduce my company, I'm from Emphasis Consulting. We do strategic consulting, and we have a real flair for PR and marketing. But a lot of the work that we do is to help launch businesses into new markets. So for example, we've helped quite a few companies enter the Philippines, which is quite a unique place to set up business. And that's what we're going to hear from Lloyd about today. So also, I am based in the Philippines today. I came here because of Cloudstaff, did the really weird thing of insourcing myself to the outsourcing company. At the time, we had a team of 6 through Cloudstaff. So we had 3 software developers, a quality assurance person, a product lead, as well as marketing. So we had a full team through Cloudstaff, and being based here in the Philippines, we really got to experience the Cloudstaff experience firsthand, which is something quite incredible. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Lloyd. I mean, we are at Startup Grind, and every entrepreneur has had to do the elevator pitch. I was wondering, maybe you could give us the one minute elevator pitch for what is Cloudstaff, Lloyd?
Sure, Leah. Hey guys, great to be here. Cloudstaff is really about using the cloud to enable your global workforce. We started off originally doing software QA testing and some software development, and we've now grown to about 2,500 staff, and we have everything from engineers and guys designing air conditioning duct vents for Texas, through to software developers working in Southern California. We do support for startups and you name it. And so we're really about helping businesses get that extra horsepower they need, and making it easy to be able to build their workforce.
Nice. Let's jump into the recorded interview. We're going to hear a little bit about Lloyd's journey, how he got to where he is today. Cloudstaff just recently closed a $30 million Series B, which is absolutely incredible, especially during a pandemic. But it's been a long journey to actually get to this current point.
Lloyd, thank you so much for joining the Coffs Harbour Startup Grind Meetup online.
Leah, it's fabulous to be here.
So have you actually ever been to Coffs Harbour,
I
Australia?
have been. In fact, we a few years ago, we did a tour through Australia. We put some of the staff down there.
I remember.
And it was a fantastic experience. So we had a conference in the Hunter Valley and we decided to arrive in Brisbane. We drove all the way down and we drove all the way back.
Because the Startup Grind audience all around the world, they're all entrepreneurs. And I think we probably all take the internet for granted these days. But if we were to go right back, you started your first business, Power Up, in 1984.
When I was in Brisbane working for the Apple resellers, I had a couple of friends and we were involved with bulletin boards, dial-up bulletin boards. And my bulletin board was called Midnight Express. So this kind of dates us, and we're in the late 80s here.
Well, this is the thing. I was actually reading about Power Up, and it said that it provided sophisticated services beyond internet connection to its customers, such as email access. So we're really going back a while now.
Oh man, but you know what? Before the internet, it was the world of bulletin boards, and we had a little office in a garage in Morningside, which used to flood. And it was not uncommon to have a foot of water in there. But we had 400 telephone lines coming into this thing. But I remember back in the bulletin board days, I think we had 8 telephone lines. And when we saw people chatting online in real time, that was the bit where you went, oh wow, this interactivity, because back then we started doing email, which was kind of neat. But when people started to chat and use that interaction, all of a sudden you kind of realize that you're onto something there.
And that was when you were still working at Microsoft, right?
This was one of those classic cases where it was a hobby that all of a sudden grew and grew. And I remember we'd just done the Windows 95 launch, and that was where all of a sudden the dial-up connection was inside Windows 95, and we'd just done this round Australia tour. We launched Windows 95, showed people how dial-up modems worked and everything like that. And then chatting to the guys, and they were saying, we had this thing called the money printer, and it was an old HP inkjet. And when you'd sign up, you'd log online and you'd sign up, put your credit card thing, and this thing was just printing money every day. There'd be 20 or 30 new applications for people wanting to get on the internet. And that was a bit where we went, wow, there's actually a business here. So that was the reason I left Microsoft to then go and work at our first business, which was called Power Up.
There you go. And I know that if you fast forward, so Power Up was eventually acquired, and I think it was valued around 12 million at the time.
That's right, yeah. The ISP business was a consumer business.
Yeah.
And we did a very successful job in being able, we built a internet in a box, which was sold through Harvey Norman and a whole lot of other computer resellers. And it went really well.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I guess at that time too, technology was still new. Internet, I guess, hadn't been completely adopted right across the market. So Malcolm Turnbull, Australia's future Prime Minister at the time, he obviously took an interest in what you were doing. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with him. Malcolm was still chairman of Goldman Sachs there. A really interesting guy, a really, really smart, switched-on guy. And then he, when they invested in WebCentral, after we split that off from the ISP business, and Ozzymal took the ISP business, Malcolm was on the board of WebCentral. And again, there were certainly some animated discussions, but it was one of those it was a pleasure to have those board meetings because they were so stimulating. They literally were. You had to come very well prepared, and Malcolm was very well versed in a whole range of different technologies. And if you didn't know the technology, he at least knew how to ask an intelligent question around the subject matter. So, but that was a very interesting time. Yeah, I remember you telling me about Turnbull, that he was the kind of guy that it always felt like he was 6 steps ahead of the conversation that was happening. It was not uncommon to get a call from Malcolm on Saturday morning saying, oh, hey, I was just chatting to these guys. You really need to talk to them. Do you think we should buy them? And it was, really cool. Oh, I've just talked to this guy who's in the US. He's doing that sort of stuff. You really need to talk to him and have a chat. And so he added a lot of value in that area. So I really enjoyed having Malcolm on the board there. So by the time he acquired WebCentral in 2004, what was the business looking like at that point? So it was really interesting. And one of the big challenges entrepreneurs have is when do you sell the business?
Yeah.
And one of the things about WebCentral is that, the three founders, my other two partners, we had 50.1% of the business and Malcolm had 48 whatever it was. But, the question really is, when do you sell the business? And one of the things that we kind of realized is all our assets were tied up in that one business. It was everything. And, I used to have a policy of having line of sight to the offices. So in Sydney, I had an apartment that overlooked the office. In Brisbane, I had an apartment that overlooked both our data centers. Wow. And I just always remember, when the storms would come through, you just worry, is this going to be the bolt of lightning that causes everything to fall over?
Did that ever happen?
No, it never ever happened. But it was just one of those sort of things that we realized all our assets were tied up in this one business. And so the decision to sell the business, we looked at a couple of things at a trade sale, and then Malcolm came up and said, look, why don't we buy you guys out? And so we came up with the number there that we were happy with, and that worked well.
Wow. So next step, you've sold the business, $45 million sale. That's pretty fantastic. And then you turned your focus to Asia Pacific.
I was really keen to go up and we started working on offshore software development, partnering with places like Tsinghua University in Beijing, and then also in Xi'an as well. So we created 2 development centers there.
So that was what you were doing in China, and I guess when I was looking at the timeline, I think Cloudstaff, you could probably trace it back to 2005.
So what ended up happening is we needed to do some software QA testing. We had a couple of customers in the UK and Australia, and they said, can you do some QA testing? We said, there's just no way we can do this in China. And I had a friend who was working in the Philippines, and he said, you really should try the Philippines. So in 2009, we ran a pilot down here. We ran it at Clark. It went really well. We had 40 or 50 people turn up on a Saturday morning and just went through a job interview process. We selected 7 people in that original team and started running it literally out of an apartment.
Wow. So what did it look like in those early days? Like when you were first starting up, how many customers did you have? Where did they come from?
They were software QA customers that started, and then we started doing some development work inside it. And then the business just gravitated to the Philippines, just because I guess the language made it a lot easier and those sorts of things. And so we kind of then started, moving resources from China down into the Philippines.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I really appreciated too, because obviously I've been a customer of Cloudstaff as well. And certainly upon arriving in the Philippines and being able to spend more time with our staff, it was so easy to build those social relationships because it's quite a westernized country. Everybody speaks English, and I think we have a lot in common in that way.
And just such a great work ethic as well. And that just counts for so much.
And you were successful in raising AUD 30 mil amid the pandemic. Congratulations.
That was if they give out Oscars for Series B raisings, I like to think we're pretty humble, but I tell you what, I'm putting my hand up for that one. We were in November, December, started working with a local venture capital firm called Navigar. And they're a Philippines-based VC firm. And, we were keen to sort of grow the business to the next level, and that requires growth capital to be able to do that. And so in end of January, February, we signed the deal, and all the paperwork was locked away. They did their capital call. They required 22 business days for that to occur. And our deal was due to complete on March the 20th. On March the 19th, the bottom fell out of the Australian dollar. We had a material breach of our contract. That they could have pulled the plug at that time. So this was the deal falling apart at the 11th hour, 59th minute, 40 seconds into this before the deal was due to complete. So just amazing.
That's incredible. I was just on a call the other day, a webinar, which was for the Australia-Philippines Business Council. And it was funny because I mentioned to someone that I live in Angeles City, and they said, how did you end up there? And I told the story of Cloudstaff and how I arrived in August 2018, wanted to be here and working with the team. And they said, do you know Lloyd? I said, of course I know Lloyd. And then suddenly everybody else on the call was lighting up. I know Lloyd, I know Cloudstaff. And everyone had this amazing story to tell about you and about the Cloudstaff brand. So it's quite interesting because it's actually become somewhat of a legend, and not just with entrepreneurs, but also I think with Cloudstaffers. So taking a bit of a different track, I wanted to talk a little bit about what it means to be a Cloudstaffer, because in my time here, I was able to witness that culture firsthand. And I think company culture is so key, but you've been able to bring something really special to the brand here. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you built that.
Well, I actually did tell a story about WebCentral. So we had a board meeting with Malcolm January, and Malcolm said, yeah, we'd be looking through the numbers, and he says, oh, you got a mistake. I said, oh, what's that? Your GST bill. There's a mistake there because it's a variance. It's up by $150,000. And I said, oh yeah, no, that's right. We did our Christmas party in December. And he said, oh no, that can't be right. That meant that you spent $360,000 on your Christmas party. I said, yeah, that's right. So anyway, it was one of the things that we tried to do at WebCentral is we always wanted to make it a memorable experience for the customer, for the staff. And so the Christmas party was one of those times where we flew everyone to Cairns once. We would do these big theatrical sort of shows around the place, and it was just giving that big corporate experience. I think I got a bit of that from the early days of Apple, and of course some of the the growth days of Microsoft, where that sort of big team building, celebrate your wins was kind of the way in which the businesses worked. And so we took that through to WebCentral, and then when we started building the Cloudstaff business, that culture and retention is a really important part. We like to say our secret sauce is technology plus people. And so, and to be able to do that, we do invest very heavily in that local culture.
I can actually vouch for the end of year party here in Angeles City. The first one I went to was December 2018, and I will never forget it. I've tried to tell other people in Australia what it's like, but it's something to behold. I remember going up, and I think there was probably about 4,000 people there, maybe more. And it's a bit more like turning up to Big Day Out or a big giant music concert rather than, say, an end of year, someone's office Christmas party. And it was actually interesting because there was a big barricade around the venue. And I think there might have been more people standing outside looking, wishing that they could get into this incredible party. And it was such an experience, because then you start to really see what a VIP experience it is to be able to call yourself a Cloudstaffer and go and have these amazing experiences. I believe staff are able to bring along a family or a family.
We do a plus
friend.
one, We started that really early on because we wanted people to be able to share that experience.
One of your staff members actually proposed on stage, and you were in on the joke the whole time.
One of the staff came and said, look, the Christmas party, I would like to propose to my wife and my fiance. And he said, I'm really scared of public speaking and being in front of a crowd. And so this is how I can prove my love to my fiance, is by standing in front of 4,000 people and saying, will you marry me? So we kind of set that one up a little bit, and that was actually kind of fun. And then last year we did a Christmas party. I think we had 9,000 people turn up. Scaling these sort of events starts to become quite a logistical nightmare. And so midway through last year, we would kind of, these events need to be booked and planned 6 months in advance. And I was really wondering, have we actually outgrown that? Have we gotten too big? And the plus one has always been an important part of what we do, because people get to bring their family along. And I got cornered in the corridor, and someone was saying, "Oh, what's going to happen this year for the Christmas party and that sort of stuff?" There, and I said, "Oh, we're thinking about a range of options and that sort of stuff." And this lady said, "Oh, well, look, every year, I've got sort of 2 kids, and I cycle the children, and so and she said, and the kids are already hassling, oh, who's going this year and what's going to be on, and they really want to know what's happening there." And so every year she would bring an alternative child to the Christmas party as her plus one. She said, they met Bamboo and all that sort of stuff. It was really good. And at that point, because we were kind of debating, have we grown too big? Do we need to make this stuff smaller? And at that point, I went, oh man, we got to make this thing work. And so we chose the biggest indoor arena in the world at Philippine Arena. It holds 55,000 people. And I went to this thing and went, oh man, it was going to cost absolute fortune. And I just knew we had to figure out how to make this work. And that was an amazing experience. I think but it's also a little bit about the business is more than just the individual employee. It is really about being family friendly and having to adopt that. So around the offices, we have childcare facilities, and we continue to figure out how to integrate that family as part of the Cloudstaff story.
I remember when I first came here, one of our team members, Carmela, she would always refer to us as family. And it was funny, when I first arrived, I thought, oh, that's cute, but it's strange to call your workmates family. But once you've actually been here for a while, you realise that Cloudstaff really is family. And
again, this was one of those learnings from the early days of Microsoft. Microsoft was just a great culture, but they had culture existed at two levels. There was the groups, your local department that you're part of, and you felt like that was kind of a really important part. And then you had the corporate culture as well. And so at Cloudstaff, we tried to replicate that as well. So each customer has their own element of culture, and that's like the little team. If you've got 20 or 30 staff at Cloudstaff, they're all going to be in their own room. They're going to have dual branded uniforms, and they're going to be feel like they're part of, or they are part of your team and your company. But they're also part of this bigger culture as well.
The elephant in the room is COVID-19, and that's really changed the whole world's attitudes to remote working and online collaboration. And it must be interesting from your perspective, because Cloudstaff has been set up for remote working since its inception. I mean, you guys are the experts on this topic.
The entire business world had a lesson on remote working. And people who would have things like, oh, we can't do this, we can't have people working in overseas offices because of security and stuff like that. That's all changed. So literally, this whole concept of people, we like to think, working on the cloud has changed overnight. Small to medium enterprises started to move to the cloud. They started to get rid of that small business server. They moved to their Google Office 365 or Google Docs. They moved their accounting to Xero. They moved their contacts to Salesforce. And then the staff, they could be sitting at home or they could be sitting at Cloudstaff.
So what was that like? Because yes, you were set up for online collaboration, but the lockdown happened pretty quickly, mid-March, and you've got, 2,500 staff across 6 locations in the Philippines. What was that like, having to quickly pivot and make sure that staff could actually effectively and reliably work from home?
Well, at the same time, we're trying to do a $20 million US series. Wow, but that's another story. Literally, we're watching the news. So, we knew Manila was going into lockdown. And we're watching the news, and on Sunday night, and then we saw they were saying, the whole of this region will go into lockdown. And so we have a system called Buzz, which we use for our disaster recovery option. It lets us be able to send SMSs to all of the staff simultaneously. Oh, wow. And we just sent a message out to all the staff saying, come to the office and get your PCs. So we moved, I think we had 94% of people operational within 24 hours. And we just told everyone, come to the office and get your PC. Now, we had, we'd already been working on this part of our BCP plan beforehand. We had like 400 laptops already. We in fact, the preceding months, all our central teams, what part of the practice was, what would happen if you had to work from home? Oh, we couldn't work from home. It's like, well, you better figure out how to make it work. Oh, well, the staff don't have internet or don't have that. Well, we better get it. Mm-hmm. So we'd already done some work on this beforehand. So, the move to a home-based work from home, it was a big job, but we moved in that fairly quickly. But we do probably owe a local shopping centre for about 200 shopping carts that got used to take people's PCs home. When we sent them, there were literally. People came to the office at 2:00 in the morning, loading up these shopping carts with their UPS and their monitors and their keyboards and their CPUs, and they were just pushing them down the street because Wow. It was difficult to get transport, and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the staff did a really great job in being able to move this sort of stuff there. But as I said, I think we do owe the local shopping centre some shopping carts.
That's amazing. That really still sounds like quite a startup story too. You know, you just get it done. So what was it like for your customers around the world? You know, how were they feeling when they've got their staff in the Philippines? What sort of things were you hearing from them?
I think the first, so we made the move to home before they did. And I think a lot of the customers were going, gee, this is kind of a bit inconvenient. You know, what's going on here? What about security? Then all of a sudden, Australia and the US kind of then started to go into lockdown 1 or 2 weeks later, and then they kind of really, got that lesson about why this was important. Then we've had other customers, e-commerce customers, accounting firms. The business is all just exploding. So it has created opportunities in some sectors, as well as, of course, introducing some huge challenges in others.
So what is next? You've got this Series B funding. What's in the next 12 to 24 months for Cloudstaff?
We obviously want to keep growing the business, and we think that this is a great opportunity for us to be able to sort of really endorse that whole cloud-based, using the cloud as that work platform. We are also potentially looking at how do we use these tools for maybe having staff who are literally based in Australia, or based in the US, or based in South America. So the platform that we've built, we can open these other footprints in other countries very, very easily. And so that's something that we think may be part of the offering. One of the really interesting challenges about Navigar as a partner is, the first thing they said is that what's going to happen in 5 years. And so, we've had to go off and do the research, and they've, put us in different directions and shared with us, different views. And so we've actually had to start the whole process by, what does the world look like in 5 years' time? And one of the things that we think is businesses are going to be smaller, not larger. And so if you've got 500 people today, in a few years' time, you may only have 300 people, but you'll have another 500 people who are part of that gig economy, cloud-based employees who are actually driving your business. I would actually make is that, everyone has to use COVID as an opportunity to go back and look at how their business applies. So you've got to make use of this technology. We've got to use this as an opportunity in some ways to recalibrate elements of the business. And I think there's some great opportunities there for driving that. So, it's kind of cool.
No, that's fantastic. Look, I think the next few years is going to be a really exciting time for you and for Cloudstaff. I think it's a great opportunity too for other entrepreneurs to start thinking about outsourcing and how that can save them money and make things more efficient. So we might throw over to questions from the audience, but I just want to say thank you so much for making the time. It's always great to chat with you, and you're just full of good stories.
Thanks,
I love it.
Excellent. Here we go. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And thank you again, Lloyd, for your time to record this interview, and your premises, and of course, Leah, for making it all happen. So I'm very keen to hear the questions, but I have my first question I'd like to ask directly. Lloyd, I might put you on a spot here.
Sure, no problems.
So the question I have, looking at COVID-19 and working from home, and the question around central or centralized operation or decentralized operation. Is it possible that other location, maybe even Coffs Harbour, which is great lifestyle for many entrepreneurs and operating businesses, is Coffs Harbour or remote location be potential destination for Cloudstaff? Are you looking to maybe decentralize your operation?
Absolutely, and I think this, whether it's Coffs Harbour or anywhere else around the world, I think you will see. But I think also one of the work options is this thing which is a flexible working environment, where people will work from home and then still have that ability to come into the office. And so one of the things that we're also looking around is little micro offices around the place where people could come in and still operate. If you're trying to spin a team up, you're trying to do training, sometimes it's best to do that in that one office location. But I think certainly COVID will present lots of opportunities. I know of people who've moved out of Sydney and they've moved up to the North Coast simply because everything it's now an accepted norm that we are operating from the cloud.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we have perfect example actually on this call right now. We have Mervyn, who is our recent innovation hub tenant. And I'm very pleased to see him here. He just recently moved up to the Coffs Coast from Melbourne as well, or from Victoria. Hi, Mervyn. And similar to Katrina as well. She's on the, there you go. So I think, you know, to have a lifestyle and be, you know, maybe use this as an opportunity to define what life is about, and, you know, be around like-minded people, have good internet connection, as I think is a must. And coming from a technology background, Lloyd, what are the key elements that you are looking for Cloudstaff? What, not only from staff point of view, but from infrastructure point of view, connectivity, is airport a must? What do you think are the key elements?
Look, connectivity, you know, and you know, this is not N+1, you know, this is N+2, electricity, N+2, those sorts of things. And so I think that's, if you're looking at you know, what's important for remote workers, it's got to be flexible as well. So, you know, the availability of 5G, I think, but also at the same time, you know, we still need fibre connections to be able to get the additional bandwidth that we need sometimes there. Again, airports. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting, but I think more, you know, people are looking for more of, you know, that support from their office perspective.
And I heard that you very family focused, you know, childcare, potentially schools. So to have education system where, you know, the kids can get good education while the parents can work, be in a regional location, I think it might be of importance as well.
Yeah, and look, one of the interesting things that we find is that the hours that people are working are now longer. But, you know, they'll take a break in the middle of the day, you know, spend an hour or two, go and get the kids, and those are things that the staff that we have in Australia, that's exactly how they operate. You know, there's just, you know, but there's no commute time. So you actually find that you probably get a little bit more out of people than you otherwise would. But then, you know, you do have that flexible working environment.
And from a technology trend, I don't know if you can share much around what are the services currently in demand. So a virtual receptionist compared to maybe a, you know, front-end developer. What are the key, you know, type of roles that you are looking for?
Well, the roles that we're seeing customers sign up for the moment, accounting roles are still going strong. Those customer service roles, debt collection, you know, those teams are growing quite quickly. But it's around, you know, so when you do start to operate these distributed offices, you know, making sure that you can still, inverted commas, answer the phone, answer the email, respond to those sort of things. So rather than having a virtual receptionist, we tend to find customers and we encourage them to think about a team-based approach. You know, can you put a group of people together to share amongst your executives inside there? But and that's, I guess that's complementing the fact that people aren't always sitting at a desk, they aren't always by their phone. But you've always got that. In fact, at Cloudstaff, we have a team called a Pulse team that we create ourselves to serve the needs of the employees, but also the customers. And, you know, if we get an email, we've got to respond in 120 seconds. You know, if the phone does ring, and it does ring, you know, 3 rings and make sure that it's answered, those sort of things. So you still need to have that, you know, be available for the customers, and whether it's chat, email, or directly through the phone.
Yeah, and I totally see the connection to Philippines, especially between Australia and Philippines. My son spent 6 months in Manila, in Quezon City, learning to code. And I think the cultural experience for him was also very important to see the alignment. In the last Startup Grindchat, we had Guy Kawasaki here. He's the chief evangelist for Canva. You know, Canva is one of our big companies now, big rising stars, and they have a substantial presence in the Philippines as well. And do you see more Australian companies taking up the offer to, you know, utilize the talent in the Philippines?
I think that, you know, one of the approaches that we're taking is, you know, the Philippines is certainly a great location, but I think there's, you know, it's about building that global footprint. You know, if you're an Australian company starting to enter the US market, and if you're a consumer play, then you're going to need Spanish support. So, you know, we're looking at a footprint that will give us that sort of capabilities. So I think, you know, small businesses still need to maintain that global perspective. We think that the Philippines tends to be the English of Asia, the center of that English in Asia. The English here is very good, and so that makes it a little bit easier inside there. But our strategy is multiple footprints around different parts of the globe, depending upon where the demand and the skills are.
Excellent. I'm going to be quiet now because I think there's some other questions coming up. So Nathan or Leah, have you got any other questions?
Yeah, Katrina actually had a great question. Katrina, did you want to ask your question directly to Lloyd?
Just unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Lloyd. Thanks very much for catching up today. It's really good to speak with you. I've just got a question at a startup level. What would companies need to have in place at a basic level to start to even think about outsourcing?
Really good question. You do need to make sure that you've got a bit of revenue to come through to be able to support the staff. So, and one of the things that I did at Microsoft is, we actually grew our business while, and so I would work Saturday and Sunday in the business, and Monday to Friday you're on the road presenting and those sorts of things there. So you do need a bit of cash flow to be able to support that inside it. I think there's also looking at the tools that you're actually building, and naturally, of course, to make sure that the cloud features as part of that. Yeah. Look, I think it's and I think the other key thing is that you've got to realize that you have this new lever in your business, and it's called people. And that's a bit that people go, it's really hard to understand. I've got a house here, and I've got like 6 staff that kind of look after me and do everything like that. So you have the ability to have people to do tasks that you probably wouldn't otherwise think would be important. For instance, we have staff 24/7 answering the phone, answering the emails. So you can afford to do those sort of things that you couldn't afford to probably do, and you shouldn't be doing in Sydney or those sort of locations there. So it's thinking a little bit like that. We've started a new. We've been experimenting with some of our new marketing dollars, and we're doing hand-curated emails. And I don't know, I think MailChimp, when you send a mail out, you get 1% open rate, and maybe if you're lucky, or 5% open rate and a 1% click-through rate. We're getting a 10% click-through rate on this sort of stuff there. So, and it's just because someone's, we've got a process that we put in place where people are sitting there and hand curating these emails and finding some sort of hook to be able to go into the target. So I think it's thinking about a little bit outside the square, that the opportunities that you use these people for.
Great, thank you.
It's great to hear some return on investment. So we have several marketers on this call, and I think quite often businesses are asking, okay, if I market, where is my return on investment? So if you can demonstrate that you can improve the click-through rate, where you have much better responses or individual responses, I think that makes it quite compelling to explore those avenues.
And you've also got to respond. One of the best things that we do is that 120-second email response. There's no rocket science to that. Someone sits there, watches the email to come in, but they respond, and it's not an automatic auto responder. So they I'll get John to speak to you, and people like that sort of interactive response, or that real-time response, and so I think I actually believe that these big MailChimp, those big guys, I think that campaign email stuff is kind of going to die, or it will move to a different sector. But certainly, we're startups. You want to get that conversation going with your potential customers, and this is probably one of the ways that you can do that.
Mm-hmm. And especially startups who are in the scaling mode, where they need staff quickly, but they don't really want to commit to hire someone, they can utilize your services.
Yeah, and so getting that tractions. Look, I think one of the challenges, though, is you've got to realize that the staff here don't have the same domain knowledge that you have around your business. And one of the hardest roles that people ask for is they want that they want a sort of an assistant who is a second brain, you know, proactive innovator and that sort of stuff. It's like, man, I'm hard finding those people in Australia, and you want to try to find them 5,000 kilometres away. So you know, when you are looking at building the team up here, you've got to start with the low-hanging fruit, things that will actually work. And so that's why, you know, if you can pick some of these, you know, manual tasks that you can put through, I think it's a good way of actually kicking that off.
We've got another question. Nathan, my business partner, Nathan Smale, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I did. I obviously I've seen so much of the success of using someone like Cloudstaff myself is through process and being able to articulate what needs to happen. And you've obviously got that a little bit innately, because you managed to grow Cloudstaff 2,500 people, but you've also grown the hardware business previously. So, you know, over the years, you've done both kind of tech startup and people startup. What have you found challenging about either, or which do you prefer? And any advice you've got for people doing both those kinds would be awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, WebCentral was all about that, recurring revenue from small to medium enterprises. Well, look, I think one of the really interesting things about WebCentral is we never realized the value that we had in that connection with the customer. You know, when Aussie Mail sold to MCI WorldCom, I think we all thought it was crazy because you were paying $15 a month for your ISP connection, and these guys came along, and I think they paid $230 per user. It was just crazy. We all thought, you know, they're mad. But you know what? You know, that relationship, that billing relationship you have with that customer is just so absolutely key. And I think that applies in both, you know, in all those sort of business there. But you know, I think what would be easier? I think you know, I do get a real buzz out of the stuff that we're doing here with the people element, and that's kind of cool. But at the same time, you know, we are trying to bring that technology and sort of blend the two together. So we say Cloudstaff's secret sauce is people and technology.
Was there any other questions that people would like from to ask from the audience? Please do drop them in the chat. Sissy, would you like to be unmuted so that you can ask your question?
Sure, if I could, that'd be really good. I think I have already unmuted.
Oh, yep. Sorry, gotcha. Go ahead, Sissy, ask your question.
Yeah, sure, that's great. Thank you. So my business is actually help businesses grow and also raise capital for them. So for me, I was, you know, this great story that you're telling in relation to Cloudstaff and in terms of the successful Series B raise. But I was just wondering, thinking back in your Series A days or even seed days, I think a lot of people here are probably in that stage. Just wondering, what do you think were the success factors, and you know, why did the investors actually invest in you back in Series A?
The Series A we did was kind of some friends and family, and so when you've got a bit of track record, that obviously goes a long way. And at the same time, they do tend to invest in the people and the vision that you actually have there. So you know, I was very fortunate that with Cloudstaff we were able to obviously self-fund that. But back in the days of Power Up, you know, it really was being able to sort of, you know, work with you, take the investors on to, I think one investor we have in Cloudstaff has been with every business that we've actually had, so that's been kind of nice. One of the interesting things, by the way, just for people that are starting up, you know, do make sure that you're absolutely crystal clear with your, you know, the shareholders agreement, not with working with employees back in the days of WebCentral, you know, options, those sorts of things. You've just got to be crystal clear with that from day one. It's very easy as an entrepreneur, you know, when you're starting up, you know, saying to people, oh, well, you know, we'll do some options, we'll do some shares, or writing something through, making sure that you've got a perfect share register is something that, you know, is I would absolutely recommend it inside there. It's one of the learnings that we had along the way in the WebCentral days.
Right. Thank you for
So
that.
do that paperwork, guys, and make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and that you put some thought into those ESOP plans and those sort of things.
Very great advice. Thank you.
I've got another question here. So this is just from someone who is on mute, so I'll read it out for them. Here you go. So they're saying it's something that frequently comes up when putting proposals together for clients is, do you outsource your work? So from a local or a small business level, there seems to be some hesitation to work with digital marketers that have that kind of workflow. Perhaps they think it's just a cheap way to get work done. So Lloyd, what do you think, what types of positive reinforcement can those types of small businesses use, or what would you recommend that kind of helps allay some of those fears about outsourced work?
So I think, so we had, was speaking to one of our customers who's in software development, and I said, oh, do you tell your customers that you have staff at Cloudstaff? And we would never have mentioned that. He says, now, however, if we have Cloudstaff's address on our website, the team that we have up in the Philippines, that's our Philippines office. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have the credibility with the customers that we have inside there. And I think are you outsourcing, or, our model is really about giving you that dedicated team. The Cloudstaff model is about saying, here is John, here is Cindy, and they're part of your office. They're there 40 hours a week. So I think that's a bit different from the outsourcing model. We're fully compliant with all the UN modern anti-slavery guidelines, all that sort of stuff. So we tick all those boxes along the way as we go through there.
Yeah, I can vouch for that too, particularly with our team. We would often share photos of our team and put their successes up in, say, like website blogs or on Twitter. And a lot of our clients or key stakeholders actually really enjoyed getting to learn who were our cloud staffers, who was in the team, what are their names, what are their personalities, and what are they working on. And we really leveraged that opportunity to bring them into our core fold.
In fact, one of our customers is a large US accounting firm, and based in Chicago. And I asked them the question, what do you do? When you're talking to your customers? And she said, oh, it's easy. We go to the customers and we say, okay, now we can get this work done. Where would you like it done? We can do it in Chicago, or we can do it with our staff in the Philippines. Here's the rates. And she says, no one has ever rejected the Philippines rate. So they're upfront with their customers, and it said that they give them a choice.
Just on that too, I think this is a really great sort of open space to be able to ask some of the questions that people often push back on, I guess, to outsourcing. And one of the things is about that cost. Is it a bad thing to be taking jobs offshore, or is it a bad thing to be paying so little in somewhere like the Philippines? And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, because having lived in the Philippines myself for 2 years, I've seen how Cloudstaff actually pays excellent rates to its staff, and the people who are working there, their earnings actually have such a flow-on effect. It's lifting people out of poverty and giving them a completely different trajectory on life. And also, one of the things that you've mentioned before is about how you develop your people and how they move on. It's not just a flash in the pan type experience. This is actually creating pipelines. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a rising tide floats all boats, and I think and at the same time, look, if you're in Australia, you do have to be globally competitive, and again, it's getting that I think all SMEs need to have a global footprint. The other comment I was just going to make about the staff is we have this line which is kind of it's what we leave behind. In these sort of markets, whether it's India or the Philippines or wherever, you get some very large outsourcing companies. They turn up and they hire 500 staff, and it's great for the local economy. And they're there for 3 years, and then their contract finishes, and then they're gone. And it's what did they leave behind? Well, you've got 500 people who can pronounce all the street names in Southern California really, really well, but that's it. Everything else was kind of popped up screens and flashing KPIs, the script appears on the screen, all that sort of stuff. You know, we're in that SME category, and because the staff are dedicated with the customers, you know, they that training, and our customers don't want 50 staff doing one thing. They want one staff member doing 50 things. And so, you know, there's a lot more training that needs to go inside there, transferring of that domain knowledge. So we really focus and make sure that we have a very, very high staff retention rate, which is in excess of 98%. And so, you know, it's what we leave behind. And so a lot of our customers are training the staff, and we do a lot of work in the real estate sector. And, you know, I just know that in 5 years' time, we'll have staff that have worked at Cloudstaff that leave, that are going to go and start their own real estate business here in the Philippines. And it's going to be based upon the experience and that they've been given from their customers. So that's the bit that I think is also you know, it's a real buzz. It's kind of what we leave behind as we build these businesses.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. I know that my business partner, Nathan, I believe he was working in previous business before, but he was actually one of the very first customers of Cloudstaff almost a decade ago.
That's right, yes.
And we were just noticing the other day, there was one female Cloudstaffer who had worked on his team, and we looked her up on LinkedIn, and she's actually in Singapore working as a QA for Scoot Airlines now. So it is really a launch pad or a springboard, I think, for a lot of people to be able to build their careers and get the skills that they need to really have a new trajectory in their life. I've definitely seen that for a lot of people in the Philippines. Is there anyone else who would like to ask any questions? We're sort of coming up to the end of time, and you know, I'm happy to stay on and chat with anyone if they'd like to. Oh, yep, Tony.
I've got one.
Yeah.
So what I think is a real opportunity to show the younger generation that the global opportunity is the way to go. So global mindset and exposing, you know, the youngsters to explore what the world has to offer. And that's one of the reasons why we sent my oldest son, who finished HSC at local school, to the Philippines. Do you see an opportunity to inspire younger generation to, you know, find out how it is maybe to work in other countries and, you know, connect?
Absolutely. You know, it's you know, travel just is broadens the mind and gives people such a different view on the world. You know, I did a gap year in the UK and that sort of stuff, which I really enjoyed. And when we ran the business in China, the language barrier was a real issue. And so what we ended up doing was picking up fresh graduates from Australia and bring them up for an immersive sort of 6 or 12 months to come and work up in China. So no, absolutely, I think that this whole, you know, young people, you know, obviously it's difficult at the moment, but you know, travel is just an important part, and just getting to know, you know, different cultures and what the opportunities are and what also the challenges are at the same time. But no, I think it's a fantastic gift to give if you can.
So if the circumstances allow, and we have several school leavers interested, are they able to reach out?
Absolutely, please. You know, drop us a line. Would love to. Would love if people looking for internships or even just want to pop and visit. More than happy.
That would be marvelous. Thank you for that. And one of the biggest challenges in regional Australia is youth unemployment. And I think to expose or show the youngsters when they leave the school, there is a bigger world. You know, sometimes they're a bit stuck in regional Australia, and I think to give them the opportunity would be amazing for them.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to help out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Leah and Nathan, and of course, Lloyd. Such a pleasure meeting you. And Katrina, thank you. Marvin, Mike, Nikki, Steve Goodson, he's there, a good Cloudstaff member. Mitch Forrest, Sissy, Kate, Staff, and Avalon, and Layla, Marianne, Aaron, Liz from Adelaide, and Maiden and Jason, and many other who will see this video later on. It will be published on the YouTube channel from Startup Grind, and hopefully the 2 million entrepreneurs worldwide will watch it later on. So
great stuff. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.